to another episode of Town Talk. With me today is the Director of Assessing, Lane Partridge, and we're talking tax bills have just been out and they're due on August 1st or 2nd, Lane? First. Yep. So there's a lot that goes into assessing. Your department has probably maybe 150 videos we could do with you on the different things that happen with our properties and how they're assessed and how taxes kind of become money that the town uses. But today we're really going to talk about something that maybe some of our residents don't know about, which is a residential exemption. So let's step back a little bit and tell us exactly what is a residential exemption.
So under state statute, the laws of the Commonwealth, there is a provision for a residential exemption. It's decided, the amount that is provided to taxpayers is decided by the council. They vote that every single year. Okay. And it's based on an average of all residential values in the town. And you have to be a resident of the town, not a second homeowner. You have to live here year-round. This has to be your domicile, is what it's called in the law. So under this provision, you can get a tax reduction. Last year it was $1,129, I think is what it was. That comes off of everybody's tax bill who qualifies. And we have about 13,000 parcels that qualify for the exemption in town out of the roughly 30,000 parcels.
Okay,
so not quite half of the population is here year-round.
Okay, so like I said, I don't think a lot of residents really know about this. Money saver really is what it can be. Yep. So how do you qualify for a residential exemption?
So you have to be domiciled here.
Right.
So this has to be your permanent residence. So if you have a house in Florida and a house here, but you register to vote and you turn in your taxes in Florida and everything else, you're not domiciled in Barnstable. So you have to be, the way we prove it is in the law, we have to see your tax return, your federal tax return, and what address is on your federal tax return is a qualifier to get this exemption. And if it's in Barnstable, that pretty much gets you in. And there is an application form that you also have to fill out. They're available on our website. And you just submit that to us and you can get the exemption.
Okay. There's no household income kind of thing that happens there?
Nope.
Interesting.
No income requirement at all, just residency.
Just residency.
So, and we're pretty strict about that. So, you know, there are other qualifiers that we can use. So, for instance, if you have a P.O. box that you use, and that's often the case down here, especially up in the Barnstable area, they actually get their mail delivered in Yarmouth, and you know, so we can then step down to your license, your registration. We can look at your state income tax return. There's other things that we can look at to qualify you if you're a P.O. box. But if the primary is your IRS return, and if that says Florida, you're out. If it doesn't say your address here in Barnstable, then you don't qualify.
Interesting. So when, as a resident, and I think I may have missed this last year or the year before, can I go back and get the prior years?
No. Unfortunately, every fiscal year in the town is its own kind of its own function. So we can't pay bills in the future in this year's fiscal year, and we can't do different things like that. So they are all attached to that fiscal year. So right now, if you purchased your house, if you're a new person in Barnstable and you purchased your house before January 1st of 22, and you're living in that house, it's your domicile, you can qualify for the exemption, and we're accepting applications. We started that 1st of July. So that will come off of this 2023 fiscal year tax bill. Okay. So you would see it on your tax bill in the January billing. It would actually show residential exemption.
Interesting.
So yeah, so if you just purchased your house, now if you just bought it last week, got to wait till next year.
Right.
It's as of January 1st. So if you owned it as of January 1st, you can come in or go on our website and get an application.
Right. And the application process, you've denoted some of the documentation that you would need for this. Is there a deadline for these types of things for a specific time of year?
Yeah. So the deadline to file is April 1st
Okay.
of 23 to get on to the fiscal 23 year. So you got plenty of time. If you get it to us and we have you approved prior to about the middle of November, we can get it on your tax bill and it'll actually show on your January tax bill.
Okay.
If it's after that, we just don't have time to get it processed, and so therefore you would get a credit on your fourth quarter payment.
Okay.
Is the way it would work. So the earlier the better, because then we can process it all, get it all set up in the computer, and you'll see it on your tax bill.
Right. Are there other exemptions that you can actually do with this one, or is this a
There are
specific
some.
that you can only do this one?
Well, this one is unto itself, but there are other exemptions. We have an elderly exemption. We have a veteran's exemption. If you have a 10% disability and you're a veteran and your VA letter says you're disabled, you can get an exemption. We have a blind exemption if you're certified blind. So there's a bunch of different things. You can go on our website. There's a whole list of them there that you can look at. Most of the elderly ones are income sensitive. So whole estates and your annual income are looked at. And unfortunately, those levels are fairly low. Those are state minimums that they have not changed in 30 years, which is unfortunate. And one of the reasons I think the council does the residential exemption. So, that's a pretty good amount off for those people who live here year round. It's pretty good.
Right. And I guess one of the last questions that I have for you is, we say residential exemption is this particular piece, but then the word abatement comes in every now and again, and I think people get confused with that. So
yeah.
let's denote what an abatement is to what an exemption is.
Right. So the easiest way to explain that is an exemption is a personal reduction in your taxes. It's for that person. So if
Okay.
you're a disabled veteran, you get an exemption because you're getting that money off your taxes because of something personal to you. An abatement would be, you can file for an abatement after you get your January tax bill, and it would be that you're contesting the value of your house or your property, if you're commercial. So what you're saying is, I assess it for $500,000. You say it's $400,000. Here's why I think this. File an abatement application. We review it. We review the data you've supplied, and then we make a decision whether we think you're right or wrong. Well, I don't actually. It's the Board of Assessors, but the overall department. And then if they don't like their decision, and if they don't agree with what you've presented, you can appeal their decision to the Appellate Tax Board, which is a state level, kind of like small claims court.
Okay.
And you can go there and present your case and see if you can get something off from them.
Okay, so an abatement's really about the assessed value,
It's about the property.
the property
Yeah,
itself.
and an exemption is about the person.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That was fascinating and very enlightening.
Good.
Anything that we haven't asked that you want residents to know, besides that they should pay their bills by August 1st?
Collector will be very happy about that.
Right.
That's not, we don't collect the money. So, but the other thing I want to say is, and we run into this a lot, if you're doing estate planning, and part of your estate planning is to put your property in a trust, and you make your kids the trustee, but you're the beneficiary, you no longer can get a residential exemption because you're not considered the owner. So you have to own the property and live in the property as your domicile to get the exemption. And we run into this all the time with people who are doing estate planning, and you can preserve your rights by keeping a life estate. You can still put it in the trust and have your kids the trustee, and you could be the beneficiary as long as you kept a life estate. You are still considered the owner. So when you're doing estate planning, be very careful about that and ask the questions of your lawyer. do I still qualify for my residential exemption if I do this? We run into it all the time where people are lose the residential exemption, then they have to go back to the lawyer, redo paperwork, get things re-signed, and then they can get it again next year. But they miss a year. So just be very careful when you do that. If you have questions, call our office. We'll be glad to answer them. We'll talk to your lawyer. It's fine. We'd like to do it. Generally, if you're protecting from the nursing home, you don't get an exemption. Is a good way to look at it. So there are ways around it, but you got to be careful.
Okay. If anybody has any questions, they can call the assessing office. Really nice folks that'll pick up the phone and help you out and explain things just like Lane did today. Thank you for joining us at Town Talk.